Hey everybody, and happy spring now that we're in Aries season. With everybody being at home due to the virus and everything, I've been getting a lot more requests about astrology and birth chart readings. So I just wanted to take time to do a little video to give an introductory. Some of you know that I do birth readings. Some of you don't. If you don't, hopefully this video will resonate with you. What I'm going to do for you is like a little beginner astrology course. It's one of the things that I love. I've been studying it for a couple of years, and I'm home, so please excuse the dogs in the background. So you will hear noise sometimes because, like I said, I'm just throwing this video together for the people that want to know. A lot of you don't know what a birth chart is, so what I'll do first is explain to you what a birth chart is and show you an example of one. A birth chart is like a snapshot of the planets exactly where they were at the time that you were born. So basically, it's a map of yourself. It's unique to you, the vantage point where everything was at the time that you were born and how those energies manifest in your life. Everybody's birth chart is different. Why use the birth chart? Your birth chart can help you know yourself. You learn your strengths, your weaknesses. It helps you go deeper and realize why you're doing those certain things. The readings that I do birth charts confidentially. Why are they confidential? It's because I don't want to know your business. For me, it's more about helping people to understand themselves, to becoming a greater you, like you at your highest self, because your birth chart will show you all of your potentials. This is a standard birth chart. This is from the date of March 5th. This is what a birth chart looks like. It looks like a map, again, of the planets where they were in their journey around the sun at the time you were born. Depending on where you were born, it could change. This is the exact same day, two people that were born in different places. So we will begin with me explaining to you the basis of astrology. We'll go through the zodiac signs with the seasons and their modes and qualities. We'll go through the planets and the houses. So this is a PowerPoint slide, so it is going to seem a little like school, but hey, we're here to learn anyway, right? And then also, for those of you that do wish to purchase a birth chart reading from me, we do have a promotion going on this month. Anybody that purchases a reading in the month of April, you'll automatically be entered into a drawing. And that drawing will raffle off a drone. It's not this drone that's shown right here, but it's a nice beginner drone. That drone is an X106S. That'll be raffled off, but this is a drone. So anybody that likes photography, videos, you see the world from the top down with our drones. And again, that's automatic for anybody that purchases a reading this month. Your name will go in this bucket. You'll get your ticket by email, and I'll pull live on air and let you know who won for that month. The drone for the month. Okay, so let's begin with astrology. This is Astrology 101. I hope you enjoy. What is astrology? There's debates on whether or not astrology is an actual science, just like it is for psychology. And my actual undergraduate degree is in psychology. So I personally feel like astrology is a science. To me, it's a scientific bridge that connects the physical and spiritual world by combining dimensions of number, shapes, and time. The Webster definition of astrology, the study of the movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted as having an influence on human affairs in the natural world. Celestial means heavenly. So those are all the stars, the sun, the moon, everything you look up and see, it's the study of that. The ancient people were watching those, have been for a long time. And you see this in our clock, you see this in our calendar, you see this in the breakdown of the minute, the hour, you see it in all of our mathematics. Everything they did then was for a reason, and everything in our day to day life is based on astrology. Astrology is fun to me. I use it as a way to know myself. Recently, as I said, I've been helping other people by showing them what's in their chart and getting them to see things that are there so that they can use it and embrace it and know themselves fully. Because you can't really love anybody else until you love yourself. So not only is it fun, but I personally think it's a science. What's shown here is a zodiac wheel. There's components that make up the zodiac wheel that include the zodiac symbol, the name of the actual zodiac, the archetype, the house ruler, and the house. Going through this wheel, this shows the natural order of the constellations in the sky. If you were to look up, this is the constellations as the sun moves through them in order. Beginning with Aries, which is the beginning of spring. Aries is the first house. It's the first natural ruler. It's a fire sign. This is go. This is spring. All new life begins. If you look in the inner circle, you will see the houses numbered into 12 equal parts. These segments in astrology are called houses, so you'll keep hearing me refer to house number, house such and such. This is where this comes from. You also see planets listed because each house and zodiac has a planetary ruler. The planets are associated with certain attributes. They have different qualities that affect the house that they're located in or the issue that it's associated with. If you want to know something specific about your personality, if you want to know about a certain situation or why you feel a certain way, why things are happening, you look specifically at the house. The houses are associated with different areas of life, and we'll go through those as well. And then, of course, out and outside of the circle, those are the actual zodiac name and symbols. That's what most people know, the basis of what most people know. I wanted to show different perspectives of what it would look like because I do know that people are visual and people understand things differently. What I just showed you, the zodiac wheel, that was on a 2D level as if you were looking up at it or looking down at it. If you look at the first diagram here, this shows that same zodiac wheel, but it shows it as if it was transposed into a sphere, which is what Earth is. Your birth location matters because if you were born in China versus you were born in Puerto Rico versus you were born in Russia, although you were born at the same time on the same day, it could change the house number, even though the zodiac location of each planet would be the same. It all matters, and we'll go deeper and show you exactly how that transpires. And then this last diagram in the right hand corner, we know that the planets revolve around the sun, but because it's you doing it and it's your specific birth chart, from that perspective, it would be as if it were revolving around Earth because you are on Earth. Therefore, you wouldn't see Earth on your chart because you are Earth. I don't want to go too deep into this diagram, but I did want to just show it as an example. This is one of the ones that I like that fuses together 2D and 3D. It shows you how your location of birth matters. I'll let you look at it for a little bit. I mean, Again, like I said, I don't want to go too deep into that because once we start talking about solar arc and everything, if this video continues, then I'll get to that later. It goes much deeper and changes things. But again, this is just another way of looking at how your 2D birth chart is on a 3D model. Okay, so before we go deep into the meaning of the zodiac signs, the meaning of the planets and the houses, I wanted to give you an example of a real birth chart. This is a standard birth chart that I pulled on astro.com. This birth chart is the birth chart of today, and because it's not an actual birth, we'll call it an event chart. This is the time that I decided to use to launch the video. It shows where the sun currently is and where each of the planets currently are located if this were a birth being born at this time. You see the planets fall in different houses. You see they create different shapes and angles. That's what those lines are. The lines tell you the relationship to each other that they're making. On the right side of this slide, you'll see what's called a legend. And in that legend, it tells you where each planet is by degree and sign and minutes in that house. You also see if that sign is a cardinal sign, a mutable sign, a fire sign, an air sign, a water sign. We'll go into all of that as well. But I just wanted to show you what an actual birth chart looks like. Everybody's birth chart is different. There's no two birth charts the same. There's different configurations they could make. Again, everybody's is personal and it's unique to you to tell you about your own situation. Even with twins, there's going to be seconds off, minutes off, hours off, degrees are going to differ. Everybody's birth chart is different. And that is determined by your location when you were born and when you entered into this realm, the energies that you bring with you according to how the planets were aligned in the sky. We'll first begin with the houses in which each house corresponds to what the houses mean. If you start in the lower left quadrant of the birth chart, that begins house 1, and then the houses ascend counterclockwise. House 1 is the house of self. That's your identity, your self-image, and you'll see listed the areas of those houses. That's everything that those houses correspond to. The self-image, physical body, the way you operate, everything that has Aries characteristics, that's what that first house deals with. It's you, the way you project, the way you self-identify. It's more of a I am when you think about house 1. And that's beginning self-appearances, everything in that house, anything you want to know about or any planets that fall in that house, you know that's the way, that's the approach that'll be taken because of where it is. And then so forth, so on. If you go around the wheel, house 2 is the house of possessions. That's your value, self-worth, material resources, money, everything associated with that. If you look at the chart, I'm not going to exactly read it to you, but you can see different things. It goes deeper, but these are my favorite too. That kind of sums it up. House 3, that's the house of communications. That's also knowledge, siblings, logic. And what I like about that too, I like that because Gemini is, this house is naturally ruled by Gemini. And with siblings, you know, like people say bipolar. No, you act a different way with siblings than you do with everybody else. So I understand the Gemini aspect of the third house. The fourth house, that's the house of home, family, parents, security, everything about your fourth house. It's how you feel, emotion, intuition. Your fourth house is your heritage, all of those things. Fifth house, that's the house of creativity, pleasure, children, fun, and all of these houses that we're discussing right now, they're below the horizon. So it's as if the sun is down right now. So all of this is subjective you, because this is more of what can't be seen by other people. And then the last house that's below the horizon is the sixth house. That's the house of service and health, work, service, dietary concerns, everything in that sixth house, like all of from 1 through 6, all of those are subjective. And then as you go around the zodiac wheel, of course, you're advancing through life. Your focus begins to shift. And then now it's more objective to you because the sun is now rising above the horizon. You come into partnerships, marriages in your 7th house. That's marriage and partnership house. Social contracts, everything Libra, cardinal air. And we do know that Libra is a solstice point, meaning that it's very fresh. New air. Libra is a cardinal sign. It's first. It's the change of a season. It's fall. Like now it's trying to get like, now to me, it's nostalgia. You're very like, hi, like I'm not alone anymore. And then the 8th house, death and regeneration. Death doesn't mean in astrology physical death. It means once you realize what doesn't serve you anymore, because you've met other people, you have partnerships, everything you need to do in your 7th house, you know by the 8th house if you need to change it, tear it down, restart it. That's psychological issues are in the 8th house, including power, sex, all of those things. And then your 9th house is the house of philosophy, beliefs, ethics, travel, mental exploration. I have a lot of planets, to me, I have a lot of planets in my 9th house. Your 10th house is the house of profession and prestige, your career. 11th house, hopes, wishes, friends, that social groups, clubs, everything like that. If you're a very social person, you may have a specific planet or some kind of aspect that is making to that house that makes that very strong for you. Some people are kind of reclusive because in this lifetime, that's not a concern for them, but it'll also manifest and show in their chart. And then your 12th house is called the house of self-undoing. Those are things that you kind of try to keep hidden. And to me, self-undoing is even if you don't keep it hidden, it's the subconscious part of your mind. So you may not know that it's there because you try to keep it suppressed. But once you face that fear or that issue, it does bring about a more beautiful you. It's what you believe, your hopes, your dreams, so if you believe it to be true in your mind, in your world, it's true. But that doesn't mean it's for the better you, unless you face it. I love the 12th house. A lot of people are scared of the 12th house. Again, these are just some of the basic issues that these houses deal with. So I'm going to keep referring to this as I give examples so you can see what house you need to go to for that area of life. This is another chart that lists the houses and what areas of life they correspond to, beginning with Aries. If you were to put Aries on the wheel in its natural order, that's where Aries would be. And then Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. I'm now in the 9th house. A very Sagittarian. I explore, expand horizons. That's very Sagittarian. 10th house, Capricorn, Aquarius, and then Pisces, 12th house. And the reason why I didn't list all of the zodiacs is because what's important right now is for you to understand the areas of life that each house represents. Because your zodiac symbol or sign in that house, it may change. But the meanings of the house will stay the same. And the house order will stay the same. The zodiac sign changed because, as we know, if you look up in the sky, We don't stop moving. The planets don't stop moving. It's energy, it's shifting, it's changing. But the houses, those areas will stay the same. With each zodiac sign, they have elements and they also have modes or qualities. This is in addition to their planetary ruler and the houses that they naturally rule. You have the elements of being fire, earth, air, water, starting with Aries. It's fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. All of your fire signs, any planet or anything that falls in a specific house, you know that if your Pluto is in Aries, you know that everything that Pluto is associated with, because it's in Aries, which is a fire sign, it's going to be a matter of the heart, the intuition. You have a way of approaching that particular area of life from the heart. You know that if it's Earth, you're going to be very practical about it, very grounded, very stable, rational. Air, matters of the mind. You know, the mind is airy. People say Gemini. People always make fun of Geminis and say that Geminis are bipolar. That's not exactly what it is. It's just that Geminis are air signs. And with the change of the wind, they can go the other direction. And water signs, emotional. So anything that you have in an air sign, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, you know that it's going to be very emotional issues and matters for you. Cardinal signs are the beginners, the leaders. They are the start of every single season. The first cardinal sign is Aries. We know that Aries begins spring, which is now. Our next cardinal sign is Cancer. I'm sorry, y'all. Our next cardinal sign is Cancer. Cancer is the beginning of summer. And then that is followed by Libra, which is the beginning of fall. My sister has a 0 degree Libra sun. Like she literally started Libra. And then I have an aunt, and she's literally the beginning of spring. And then our last cardinal sign is Capricorn, and Capricorn begins winter. And if you put it against the zodiac wheel, you put it next to a clock, you put it next to a calendar, all of those things correspond and line up to each other again. Like I said, ancient people, when they did stuff, they did it for a reason. But okay, and then our fixed signs, those are in the middle. Those are the ones like cardinal signs. They begin it, they have the ideas. All of your fixed signs, they set up a solid foundation. They make to-do lists. So anything that the cardinal sign said they wanted to do, they talk about it. The cardinal sign, they actually do it and get it done. The mutable signs, those are the people that prepare for the change of other seasons. They finish all the unfinished business. They make it perfect. They take what the cardinal signs, the fixed signs did, and make sure it's stable because they know that once it's done, it's done. Those are the months that end the seasons. And then also, fire and air signs are masculine. It's masculine energy. Earth and water signs, it's feminine energy. So those come into play as well because, you know, a masculine or a feminine energy or approach can also change the way you feel about a situation. And we'll go into that also. It would take entirely too long for me to go through all of the zodiac signs and what they mean. And people generally have an idea of qualities that's attached to certain zodiac signs. So, what I did here is I just gave you one of my favorite charts. I didn't make it, but it's one I found on the internet with the basic keywords of the zodiac signs. And you'll see those listed 1 through 12. Those correspond to the houses. And then below, this is another example of a zodiac wheel as it would be on a clock, with 12 at the top being Pisces because it is the 12th house. 1 is Aries, beginning with I am. And the chart in the lower right hand, I actually like this one as well, because what this does, it shows as if you were a person going around your wheel of life. Starting with Aries, you start and then you create in Taurus, Gemini, connect, and then it goes all the way around, and then it ends with Pisces. And they say Pisces is the deepest water sign because Pisces has taken what all the other signs before them has experienced, and Pisces empathizes and feels everything so deeply, and they hold it in. My moon is Pisces, but this is me showing you the different zodiacs and some of the keywords for them. And I'll let you look at this for a little bit before I go to the next slide, and then we'll get into the planets and what the planets mean. Now we're going to get into the planet and the characteristics of the planets and what the planets mean, where they lie in your chart, and how they can change different things. The way I like to remember planets is I think of it as if I'm on that planet and the atmospheric conditions makes me adapt to what it will be like as if I were on that planet. If you want to know about your money situation and why it's been going that way, you know that if you have Venus in your second house, which rules your finances and everything, think of it as if you were on Venus. What would you have to do in regards to money to survive on Venus? We're going to start with the sun, which is the giver of life. It's the brightest star in our solar system. It's at the center of our galaxy. It's almost a perfect sphere. The only difference in the height and the width of the sun is 10 kilometers. The sun is the infinite point of zero, because you know that on a plane, the sun is the beginning. It's that point where everything begins. It actually rotates faster at the equator than its poles. The sun is so powerful, it's a gas ball. You can't hide it, you can't diminish it whatsoever. It actually regenerates its own energy. So, your sun sign personality, that is your dominant personality, people are going to know that. It's the father, it's stamina, it's integrity. It rules the heart, the spinal cord, the thymus. It rules Leo. So, if you think about a Leo and you think about how bold and aggressive Leos are, that's the sun. Next up is the moon. Anywhere your moon is in your chart or any house that's associated with the moon will be associated with the unconsciousness, emotions, instincts, habits, moods, longing, the mother. Your moon sign is like the sign when you get home, you put on your PJs and you get on the couch, and it's the real you. Like, it's everything subconsciously that you want to do that only you know when the sun goes down. The atmosphere on the moon, if you want to remember, if you want to associate those feelings with the moon, it's the gases and radioactive decay from the sun. So I think of it as like all the shit, the bullshit from the sun, the father. Like, that's the atmosphere of the mother, the other side of the emotional part that we have to deal with. They don't deal with it because the sun is so bright. It's the moon that's dealing with it. So there's no air, no atmosphere. It's literally gases and radioactive decay from the sun. The atmosphere is it has a scant presence of gas. So that's why it's considered to have no atmosphere. It can't absorb radiation. It has to constantly replenish because gases are lost at such a high rate. If you think about it like we're emotional, like our emotions change from second to second, we lose gas like that. So, and it has very unusual gases. These gases are not found on Venus, Earth, or Mars. A lot of people don't take into effect the lunar phases from when you're born, but I do. I take into effect if it was a full moon, a half moon, a waxing moon, because different things are harvested at different times. To me, that's how our ancestors knew how to plant the crops, when to plant the crops. To me, it matters. The energy of the moon and its levels matters as well. But anyway, to balance your moon out, your emotions, you have to keep those emotions contained. The moon appears to be still, but it's not still. It's because it rotates and revolves at exactly the same rate. So, at the rate that it goes around the sun, that's also the rate that it spins on its own axis, and it balances each other out. That's why to us it looks like the moon is not moving, but it's actually moving. So here we have Mercury. The symbol for Mercury is located in the top left of the slide. Mercury represents mentality, communication, siblings, the mind, reasoning, communication language, short journeys, lungs, the shoulders, intelligence, duality. Mercury is a little fast planet. It's the closest one to our sun. It has no moon. It has a comet-like tail. To me, it's like, because it's whipping around so fast, it has that little tail. Mercury is nicknamed Messenger of the Gods is because it zips through the zodiac signs. And as it being the closest one to our sun, it communicates with all the other planets and then it reports back to Earth. Its temperatures vary from up to 800 degrees Fahrenheit to as low as 280 degrees Fahrenheit. If you look at the planet Mercury, it has craters on it that makes it look like a brain. So when I think about Mercury, I think about it as like communication, intelligence, things like that, like because it's the little brainy planet. The temperatures vary because there's no atmosphere. It has no sun to warm it, no atmosphere to hold the heat. So with Mercury, you get what you get, but it's going to communicate with you with no middleman. The atmosphere, it is no atmosphere to throw off anything that needs to be dealt with or communicated. One day on Mercury, it's almost 59 Earth days. So it rotates around the sun's very, 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 very quickly. But on its own axis, it takes 59 days here on Earth for it to be one day on Mercury. It's no water. So, like I said, because there's no water, there's no emotions. So it's either too hot or cold. That says to me, without the emotions, you're gaining solid facts. And if you like look at it and you look at the craters and everything, to me, it looks like a bustling little communication hub. So just think of Mercury as like your communication, your siblings, your travel, short travel, that is. Next up is Venus, which is the planet of love, romance, partnership, relationship, values, sensuality, love, feminism, luck, attraction. It's everything that's beauty. It's much denser and hotter than Earth. It has a hot and steamy, heavy atmosphere. But the temperature is constant and the atmosphere is constant. It's the third brightest planet. You can actually see Venus with your naked eye. A lot of times, if you go outside, if you look at the moon, you see a bright, shining object beside it, and you might think it's a star, but it's not a star. It's actually Venus. Venus has an amazing cloud system. The clouds move so fast that it only takes 4 days for them to be back in the same position. And what that does, it creates a greenhouse effect. It means it makes the atmospheric conditions perfect. Without those clouds, it wouldn't be like that. But those clouds make the conditions so perfect that it's like a perfect atmosphere on Venus. Venus has more volcanoes than any other planet. Like literally more volcanoes than any other planet. And when I think about those volcanoes and the fertility of Venus, I think of it as like little vaginal gateways everywhere on Venus. The temperature and atmosphere on Venus is the most like Earth. Even more than Mars, Venus is the closest to Earth. And then it only takes about 23 to 60 days per sign before it moves on to the next one. So about a little over a month, it's already in the next zodiac. So Venus is important. It's one of the personal planets. So a lot of people place emphasis on the Venus and where it is in your chart as well, because Venus plays very important roles, as all planets do, but Venus is a personal planet. Next up is Venus. Welcome to Mars. Anything that Mars is associated with, it's going to have the attributes of drive, sexuality, men, brothers, desire, aggression, competition, courage, sports, war, individuality, survival. Mars, like the little Martians, those are very like aggressive, robust energies. If you think about the surface conditions on Mars, it has very low surface pressure. The low surface pressure, anything in the atmosphere can react much quicker because there's not a lot of pressure on Mars. So, everything is just speedy, speedy, speedy. The atmosphere, it's breathable, but it's not enough oxygen to survive. So you can breathe, but it will be very painful because the atmosphere is so thin and it's extremely cold. So think about the men. Like cold atmosphere, like you can survive, but it's hard. They have giant dust storms and red soil. Liquid water can't exist there because the atmosphere is so thin. So that liquid water, which is emotions, our emotions, it can't exist there. So Mars needs help to make the atmosphere more breathable in your chart. Like give your Mars a little emotion, but it does have very, very, very large ice poles. So that water emotion is there. It's just icy. But if you melted it, those ice poles will cover an entire planet with 36 feet of deep water. So think about it. It's a very, 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 very cold planet. But if it were to heat up, it will cover the entire planet with water 36 feet deep. Mars is a fast moving planet. It spends about a month and a half in each sign as well. So this is a personal planet too. Anywhere your Mars is in your chart, you're going to go at that with aggression. And aggression is not always bad to me. Aggression is sometimes a good thing. I don't think anything in astrology is bad. I think it's all the way you interpret it to learn yourself. And then you have Jupiter. Jupiter is a fun planet. A lot of people like Jupiter. Jupiter is anything that's good luck, good fortune. It's material abundance, but it could also be waste because you can overdo with Jupiter. It's understanding, higher education, travel, wisdom, expansion, conviction, space. It's the largest planet in our galaxy. It's the big fat planet. It has the bands around it. I look at the bands on the equator of galaxy is, I mean, I'm sorry. I look at the bands on the equator of Jupiter as like stretch marks because it's like the obese planet. And it's a red spinning circle on Jupiter. I look at that as the belly button. Again, if you think about it in conditions, then you'll remember how to associate it with the different areas of life. Jupiter blasts energy. It's a hot gaseous planet. It has a non-solid core. So the middle of it, it's not solid, it's not rocky. It's a gas planet. The surface of the planet is swirling gases and liquid. So it's not solid like us, it's gases and liquid. And it actually puts out more heat than it receives. So it's so powerfully magnetic. The storms are similar to thunderstorms. I think of it as like anything that Jupiter is associated with. It's like putting it in a microwave, like Jupiter cooks it to hurry up and make it done, but it can overdo it. The storms are mostly lightning, and it's about once a year. They have fascinating moons. If you Google it and look it up, the moons are fascinating. If you've ever had a particularly great year, it's because your Jupiter was probably transiting or going through an area or a house in your chart. So everything that Jupiter was touching, it was making it successful for you. To me, it's like big, like a king. Commands authority, wisdom, expansion, like a big, fat, happy father. Those 53 to 60 moons, it has its own satellites because Jupiter is just big and happy. It stays in one sign about an average of a year. So it'll go from Aries to the next sign about a year later. So if you can manifest Jupiter's power, if you see where it is in your chart, you can use it if it's making a good angle or a good aspect to different things in your chart. We'll get to that too. Jupiter can be very rewarding. And then we have Saturn, which rules Capricorn. Saturn actually just left its sign of Capricorn. It was in its own natural ruler, and now it's in Aquarius. But anything with Saturn, it's challenge, discipline, restriction, duty, time, old age, misery, loss. People fear Saturn because its limitations, its structure, its karma. Saturn delays things, but it doesn't deny things. It's the father, to me, more of the grandfather because it's older things. Saturn gets things in order. On its atmosphere, Saturn makes it hard to have peace and quiet. You got to hunker down and battle the storm and just make it through. There's no solid ground. Storm winds, pressure, gravity. It has an extensive weather system. You know, Saturn, a lot of people, by their rings, to me, I think of it as like a big grandfather with his big hat on, and those rings are the brim of the hat. It has a very, very harsh environment. However, if you learn your lesson and stop trying to fight against it and work with it, the next time around, you'll be prepared. It has 10,000 degree temperatures and pressure up to 3 million times the pressure of sea level here on Earth. Think about it. 3 million times the pressure of our sea level here. Saturn really, really, really puts on the pressure and discipline. So anything Saturn is connected to, the major things are responsibility and discipline. It's old and huge. It's so dense. It's not dense and it will float on water. Something that big will float on water. So like basically Saturn says, screw your emotions. It plops down and makes its point. And it rains diamonds on Saturn. So like I said, Saturn will reward you. It literally rains diamonds. You can Google that as well. Like Saturn, Neptune, and Jupiter, it rains diamonds. But it's a serious, cold, and harsh planet. But it influences you. It recreates crisis. To me, it recreates crisis to put you face to face with your fears so that you can master the lesson. But the lesson is the reward you get through the discipline. So if you can survive through those atmospheric conditions, you get rewarded. Pick you up a couple of those rain diamonds. Saturn spends about 2 to 3 years in each sign. So like I said, it just left from Capricorn. Now it's in Aquarius. And your Saturn return is about every 30 years. So around the age of like 28 to 30, 31, 32, you have a Saturn return. And if you think about what was going on then, a lot of stuff happened. Some people will remember crises in their life, and that's because of your Saturn return. And then you have Uranus, or Uranus, as some people say. That's associated with everything that's unpredictable, changes, intuition, geniuses, freedom, social reform. This is originality, revolution. These are your rebels, your inventors. This is Uranus. It's bizarre and unpredictable changes. This planet, like all the other planets that's on its axis and rotates, this planet literally tilts at a 98-degree and it rotates on its axis like that. It has very, very, very huge storms. but it has the brightest clouds in the solar system. It is the coldest planet. It's nicknamed the Great Awakener in astrology because anything that Uranus touch, you guarantee is gonna like shake it up and change it. It doesn't like old things. It's futuristic. It awakens shit, and it's actually called the universe's alarm clock because it brings like sudden changes and shocks. And so it transits each sign every 7 years. If you've heard of the 7 year itch in marriages, that's because Uranus has transited. So whatever it's hidden now is shaking it up. Once you get through those seven, it's gonna release it and move on to something new. But it'll change it, and when it changes it permanently. So when you look at your natal Uranus, that is where Uranus was at when you were born, you'll see why you're so different in that area of your life than everyone else. And then you have Neptune, a beautiful blue planet. Neptune is sensitivity, psychic, mental capacity, dreams, illusions. It can also be deception, drugs, alcohol, bondage, foggy. It rules your pineal gland, however you like to pronounce it. Fantasy, imagination. It has a great dark spot. The great dark spot, it's a hurricane that's the size of the earth and it spins counterclockwise. That spot is so mysterious, it disappears sometimes. The entire planet itself is very mysterious. It has icy clouds and winds up to 1,500 milligrams, 1,500 miles per hour. It has the strongest winds in the solar system. 14 moons. It's hazy, blue, foggy. So anywhere that Neptune is in your chart, you're either going to see like the mysterious, like psychicness of it, or you'll be disillusioned and you'll think that it's some way, but it's not because you're looking at it through like this blue, hazy fogginess. It just depends on where it is in your chart and what other planets is associated with. It takes about 14 years for Neptune to change zodiac signs. Neptune is also linked to suffering and sacrifice because a lot of times people suffer or sacrifice through certain issues because of Neptune. Because of, the atmospheric conditions. If you think about it, you're either suffering or sacrificing because Neptune's atmosphere makes you do so. Music, cinema, photography, opium, like things like that, fashion, religion, those are Neptune related issues. And then we have Pluto, which is our dwarf planet. I'm a Plutonian, which means that Pluto is my chart ruler. I'll explain what that means later. Pluto is death, rebirth, sex, it's regeneration, the phoenix rising, transformation, power, obsession, domination, things like that. Those are things that are represented by Pluto in the 12th house. Pluto is called the Great Revealer. The atmospheric conditions on Pluto, the surface pressure now is decreasing. As scientists are studying it, it's decreasing. It's a generational planet. So certain generations, because it takes so long for Pluto to move, generations have this certain trait, the same trait because of Pluto. But then again, it makes a difference where it is in your chart. There's very few glasses on Pluto. It's a barren and frozen planet, but the weather changes every single day. Pluto is associated with purging and releasing buried powers. The gases is only a few, like just a couple of them. They only rise a few feet from the surface of the planet. So with Pluto, it's the great revealer, but it's also associated with being very, 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 very dark before revealing something else. So it purges it and then it releases those powers and then it just emerges as something very different. People with Pluto in Scorpio, which is the 12th house, They have highly developed psychic and spiritual energy. Pluto is another one of those mysterious dark planets, but Pluto brings beautiful change and transformation. With Pluto, a lot of times you have to go through the pain of something, and then Pluto purges it and brings the beautiful change. We've now gone over three major components to a birth chart. That's the houses, the zodiac sign or constellation of that particular house, and the planets. Now I want to quickly show you how the planets and their location and relationship to other features of the chart or to other planets, how those angles manifest differently in your chart and how those energies play as well. We're going to quickly go through the aspect and angles of the planets in your chart. When points or planets in your chart have a relationship at certain degrees to make certain angles, it creates what in astrology is called an aspect. For example, two planets, if they are at a 90-degree angle, the directional energy that it creates is square energy. You'll see on the diagram on the upper right, you'll see the aspect of the square for two 90-degree planets. Square energy is tension, it's action, reaction, earthquake, it's explosive energy. If two planets are together, they're at the same degree in a certain house or zodiac, they're conjoined. That aspect is called a conjunction. It's very strong. It means that those energies fuse together, so those two planets bind together. It's very, very strong. You'll see opposition. Two opposing planets are at a 100-degree angle of each other. They're directly opposite of each other. That aspect is called an opposition. Those energies, they contrast each other. It's effort, it's stress, it's slow, constant action because you always have to do something. You can't ignore it. It's very strong energy, just like the conjunction, but it's complete opposite. Trine energies, they create that lazy flow of the triangle energy. It's natural energy. Those are natural talents and abilities that you have in your chart and you're able to do things is because the flow of that energy is natural. It's harmonic. If you look at the little clipping of the birth chart that I showed you earlier of today's event chart, what's shown there are those energies, the different lines, the different colors that shows you exactly what the relationship is between those points. The legend beside it, it shows you whether it's square, whether it's in opposition, whether it's conjoined, and you'll see that on the legend, and that's represented by the color and also by the symbol of that specific aspect. I do want to insert here as an example in my own birth chart, my sun and my moon directly oppose each other. I have a Virgo sun and a Pisces moon, meaning my mother and father at the time I was born is direct opposition. So a lot of the things that manifest in my life, I'm either going to be exactly like my mama or exactly like my daddy. People that know me, I'm either Jackie's daughter or John's daughter, Ricky's daughter. Those are, if there is no blending of the energies in those certain areas of my life, I'm either going to have to make the choice to choose one or the other because those two planets oppose each other. And the sextile, which is represented by the number 6, I do want to say this and insert this. There's been debate on the influence of this aspect, the sextile energy, what that actually is. It's the composite of two trines. So it's two 120-degree angles, but the shape that they create, to me, this is how I see it. and this is how it is, but it's kind of hard to explain it. What it is, it's putting those two energies together into a 3D model. The missing link, it's hard to describe how those two different aspects create an angle on a different three-dimensional plane and have an effect on each other. It's been proved that they do have an effect, but it has not been proved how they have an effect, because it's the conjunction of two different trine energies. But I don't want to go too deep into that. That might be later too. But again, the angles and aspects of the planets and the points in your chart, along with the houses, the zodiac signs, and the planets, they all come together. Once you put it all together, then you learn to interpret different aspects and situations in your life. I'll give examples, and then I'll show you exactly how it can differ depending on who you are, where you are, etc. Just as the specific relationship between the degrees of the planets and the points make in your chart have special meanings, so does the location of the planets themselves. There are special configurations and patterns that can also reveal certain things about you and your temperament in your chart as well. So on the left side, we see if all of your planets are grouped together in certain houses or in a certain type of figure, such as a seesaw, a bundle, a bowl, things like that. There's been correlation between personality and temperament types and the bundling of your chart, the bundling of your planets. And then also, as you see on the right side, the yellow diagrams, those are special configurations or patterns in your chart. If you have if you have three or more planets, that creates this dynamic aspect. Those are special configurations. One, for example, is the grand trine. It's a perfect trine of at least one planet in each sign of a given element. In those areas of life, things just seem to click. You don't have to do nothing. It's just like some people are just born with it. And then you have a grand cross. I personally have a grand cross in my chart. It's two sets of planet in my chart oppose and square each other. It means that you have so many moving pieces within the puzzle. You have your hands full. It's rare, but it also brings like conflicts, motivations, like uncomfortable situations. And for me, it's helped me a lot. Like I said, when I began to study my own chart, which is where I began, it taught me a lot about myself. And then the T-square, I also have multiple T-squares in my chart as well. And this is when two planets oppose each other, and then there's a third planet that squares both of those. So you have a missing leg, and until you like figure out the missing leg to balance it out, you're always going to have trouble in that area. And then you have a yod. The yod is also called the finger of fate or the hand of God. Some people say they're a blessing, some people say they're a curse, but those energies are so directed. It's like you can't escape it. It's kind of like destiny's finger. Just as the specific relationship between the here I'm showing you again to make in your chart the natal event chart for today, so I can kind of bring it all together, and then I'm going to give you an example of a certain special configurations and patterns. Or we're going to pick a house and interpret that house reveal certain things about you and your temperament from everything that we've gone through. So on the left side, zodiac symbol to the house, all of your planets are grouped together in certain houses or in a certain type of that the planets make, such as a seesaw, a bundle, a bowl, also, things like that. Also, you have your critical degrees in your chart. So there's been correlation between personality and temperament type. For example, in the 0 degrees, this is a critical degree because it's the very beginning of the sign, it's moved into new territory. Then also, as you see on the right side, the yellow diagrams, those are special configurations or patterns. It means in your chart that if you have particular sign or point is truly entrenched in or more planets, because you're in the middle of that sign, you know everything about it. Those are special configurations that it's getting poised for change. One, for example, is also in your natal chart, you have your ascendant, of at least one planet in each sign of a given element. Of your first in house, those areas of life, things just seem to click. You don't have to do nothing. It's the line it like shows as the dividers on your chart, and then you have a grand cross. I personally have your ascendant is here in my chart. Your two sets of planet in my chart. This oppose and square each other. Get of you. It means that you have so many moving pieces within the puzzle. The zodiac sign that the horizon was in when the sun first began to rise. So, but it also brings like when you go outside, motivation. Remember a specific day or a uncomfortable situations, and may remember that it was rainy. Like I said, it was whatever. When I began to study my own chart, which is where I began, it taught me a lot about myself. You'll remember the conditions. I also have that's how it is with the ascendant in my chart as well. With the ascendant, strangers when two planets oppose each other, and then there's a third planet that squares both of those. They may say that you have more missing leg, and until you in fact figure out the missing leg to balance it out. That's me. You're always going to have trouble. I don't have a first house, and then you have a yod. My ascendant is actually at a very late degree. It's at 29 degrees, which means that some people say they're basically, some people say they're as the sun was leaving the horizon, I waited until the very last minute, like 29 degrees, and then I jumped out as if I was like waiting to finish up like Destiny's finger. So that 29 degrees, that's a critical degree. It's poised for change. So my ascendant is Scorpio, but my first house is Sagittarius. I'll use myself as an example quite often, but it just shows you how things can differ in people's charts. Although I'm a Virgo, people that first meet me may not see the Virgo side of me. They may see more of the Scorpio side of me, because that was the zodiac on the horizon when I was born. It goes a lot deeper. Hopefully I'm not losing you. And then again, like I said, depending on this video and the response I get from this, I'll go deeper and tell you more about the asteroids and the other things that can change everything, or can kind of change the course of your life, shall I say. If you know what an asteroid is, it means that it collided with something in the universe or in space to change the course or the orbit of another planet, but we'll go to that later. Okay, so as I said, now we're going to go to an actual house in this chart, and we'll interpret it, and I'll show you how it can manifest in your own life and what I actually do when I do readings on other people and how I help them to develop themselves. Because of time constraints, what I'm going to do right now, as a real live example, I'm going to use the birth chart that we've been using as an example, the event chart. In this bag, I have 12 zodiac signs. So the one that I pull out, that's the one that we're going to use in this example and interpret that house in our chart. This is the one. We have Aquarius. So we'll be interpreting Aquarius. As you can see in our event chart, Aquarius for us is the 8th house. It's not surprising to me because I said I'm a Plutonian, so for this Pluto to pop up right now for me to make an example is actually perfect. The 8th house, if you look at the chart that I showed you in the beginning of the video, in the natural order of the zodiac signs, the 8th house is ruled by Scorpio and it's Plutonian energy. Pluto is its natural ruler. Mars is also its co-ruler. This is, as studying has been deeper and deeper, it's now known that both Pluto and Mars rule Scorpio. So for us, for the sake of our interpretation, We're going to look at Aquarius in our chart, which is our 8th house, which means that everything in this house is going to take on very Scorpion, Plutonian, Mars energy. It's just like you're on the block and house number 8 is owned by Scorpio, but Scorpio is out of town and on vacation. Aquarius is there temporarily, but it's still Scorpio's house. Pluto still lives there. You can still feel the energy, the layout. Everything is laid out as it would be as if Pluto were at home in its house of Scorpio. But Aquarius is there. So everything that we have for the sake of this interpretation is going to take on the energy of Pluto and Scorpio. So our Aquarius, which is a fixed water sign, that's how we're going to approach all of the 8th house issues for this event chart. And we'll get deeper into it and I'll show you exactly how. And looking at it, the only planet that we have in this chart is Saturn in our 8th house. So we have Saturn in Aquarius, which I said earlier, it literally just moved. If you look at the chart, you'll see that Saturn is at 0 degrees Aquarius. So we have brand new, fresh Saturn energy in Aquarius. So Saturn is in dialogue with Pluto. Literally, it's new. This is brand new energy that the world is experiencing and feeling right now. And then specifically for the launch of this video, this chart, this Astrology 101 video, we're going to approach those issues from a very Plutonian standpoint. When you want to know about the conditions of a planet or a house, you look specifically at, again, the house that deals with that area. So we're dealing with the 8th house of Aquarius, which is what we pulled. In our 8th house, we have Saturn at 0 degrees. Because Saturn is within 5 degrees of Mars, which is in our 7th house, Mars and Saturn are conjoined, which means that those two energies conjoin and have an effect on each other. I'll also go as far as saying Pluto is conjoined as well, and that's because that's within 1 degree of Mars. So our Saturn, which is very responsible by being in Aquarius in the 8th house, is also conjoined to Mars. It has the desire and drive, and then also Pluto. And of course, Pluto is rebirth. It's rising out of the ashes. The phoenix is rising. So all of that conjoined. To me, I'd say this goes right aligned with this video. Like, this video just came out of nowhere. This is an event chart for this video for Astrology 101. However, it's still associated with me and my love for astrology. And this is my first video that I wanted to present to the world. The way I'm doing so with this video, as it's showing in the chart, is with Saturn being in Aquarius, it's in a very structured way. Other people may not understand it, but I know the result of what I'm trying to do. So it's very thought out because it is an air sign, but a structured air sign. It shows with the Saturn in Aquarius, it's more of a reserved way of thinking outside of the box in a very unconventional way. It still has the boundaries. This chart is still showing the boundaries because of the Saturn in Aquarius. And it also shows awareness. Although air signs are generally go, 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 the Saturn is kind of reserved by being in Aquarius, and it restricts the flow of the air. We know that the natural ruler of the eighth house is Scorpio, which is a fixed water sign. It's a fixed sign, so it's in the middle. It's a stabilizer, crafting ideas into something real. It's solid. It's a water sign, so it's emotional. It's a sign that has its emotions controlled. Scorpios are so deep and they can control their emotions so well, you never know what they're thinking. It's very feminine energy because that water sign of Scorpio is desire, transformation, control, investigation, mystery, all of those things that are associated with Scorpio and Pluto. Well, we have in our chart, in Scorpio's house, we have Aquarius. So everything about the fixed air sign, the grounded thoughts, thinking about this astrology one-on-one class, launching it because this is this chart. So the energy of what Aquarius is usually associated with those masculine ideas, and how about, hey, let's do this, we're doing it, we're launching this video, we're putting it out there, but we're doing it in a very Scorpio type of way. So we're putting it out for the sake of letting everybody know, because hey, this is so Aquarius of us. This astrology 101, astrology for beginners. This is, I mean, I know it. I want everybody else to know it. I want the inheritance of getting what everybody else knows, but we're doing it in a very structured, disciplined type of way. The 0 degrees Saturn that's in Aquarius right now, again, we're going to do it responsibly. In summary, we know that the birth or natal chart is like a roadmap to self-exploration, your subconsciousness, any landmark that you wish to discover. You can use your birth chart and the aspects and all of the attributes that it's attributed to that house to discover yourself. We know that the basic components of a birth chart is the sun sign, moon sign, your rising sign or your ascendant sign, and then also your midheaven. I didn't really focus too much on the midheaven, but that is another important aspect of the birth chart. Thank you for listening to me today. And then again, if you do want a personal reading from me, which is confidential and anonymous, I do promise you that each birth chart will be personalized. I'm not selling anything to you. I'm providing a service to you. Accuracy is very important to me. I'll cover each house and its issues. And then if you do wish to get a second follow-up reading, you can do so, and you can book that. You can ask me specifically about what house or which issue. And again, I've been doing this for a while now for family and friends, and some of them has been so accurate. Some specific dates stand out to me, and I couldn't really explain to my friends how I got that date, although in my head I get it, but it's hard for me to explain it. But you can click the link below, and the link will give you all of the details that you need in order to book a reading with me. And I should be doing a follow-up video, and that video will be on asteroids and how that comes into effect with your birth chart. Thank you.